at this point, it's really important to talk about the territory of the Arbor Council. At the, how that affects.
Okay. So the Arbor Council was created by the Immortal Seven of Hanova to help govern the laws of each experimental universe. So the Arbor Council basically goes to each universe and makes sure that the governing universal councils are obeying everything, and to also make sure that there are certain entities within those universes obeying everything.
And are you a member of the Arbor Council?
No, I am a member of the Starseed Council.
But I'm sure they asked you.
I don't want it. I don't want it. After this one.
Does the Arbor Council have a staff problem too?
Not usually.
Okay. But it's their job to check that the tenets are being obeyed, right?
Right. Now, they don't stay around continuously throughout the experiment. They just check in every once in a while.
And their time is very different than our time.
Yes.
So thousands of years could go by before they check in.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have the Starseed Council, the Arbor Council, the Immortal Seven, the different teams and councils. Okay. All righty. And the Starseed Council, from what you said before, just observes a planet that, like ours, that is due for ascension evaluation, right? And scheduling. And so I guess the word here is they more or less observe, because it's a free will universe. They tend to do hands off a lot.
A lot, yes. They are not responsible for correcting anything. They are not responsible for interactions of like ascension or anything like that. I kind of bend the rules a little bit just because I don't care and I want to retire. So I'm like, and I'm stuck here. So
right. Okay, so the Arbor Council, this was interesting because I was wondering who gives them their job, and you told me it's from source creation.
Correct.
So explain that a little bit.
Source creation works with the Immortal Seven. So most Hanovians consider them one and the same. So any laws or rules that come from, or sanctioned orders that come from source creation usually implies the Immortal Seven.
Okay. And so, and those members, like say of the Arbor Council, they can come from anywhere in the multiverse.
They can come from anywhere in the multiverse.
You get
if you are really adept at following rules and everything, when you die and go to your afterlife and you end up getting out of this universe, like actually out of this universe, you can be like, I want to join the Arbor Council, and then you have to go through a bunch of testing because they don't just take anyone. But
yeah, and I would imagine the Arbor Council has super strict requirements. Super strict.
Very, very strict requirements. It's about the same as the getting into the Starseed Council.
Okay, and the same applies, that if you break those sacred tenets that you sign agreement for, you sacrifice your consciousness.
To an extent, you basically get okay, so if you are part of the Arbor or Starseed Council and you break tenets, and we're talking like super breaking tenets, you will be assimilated back into prime source consciousness for evaluation.
But it has to be, can you give us an example of one thing that would be like super breaking a tenet? It's not just killing, it would be like exploding planets or things like that.
Well, exploding planets will get you sent to Earth.
Yeah.
You haven't noticed.
I know. I led you right into that.
I still hate this.
I was setting you
up. No, it's more of like taking the knowledge that you have to corrupt other seed universes or seed planets, ripping ripping apart the fabric of space and time to manipulate it to your own agendas. And when I mean own agendas, I mean like collapsing timelines, that sort of thing. It's very, very, very bad things that you're not supposed to do, even if you are a creator of a seed universe. So
infiltration, manipulation for the negative. Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Got it.
Which unfortunately, some of the Starseed Council members who have been here too long, they ended up getting assimilated because they were helping some of the Dark Draco councils. They got bought out.
So they got, I was going to say if they got infiltrated in their body or if they were given a deal they couldn't refuse.
Some of them were given the deal that just,
they were
couldn't refuse. Yeah. Like I said, no one's perfect.
Okay, so now one of the things, this is a sentence you told me on one of our long talks, and it just blew me away, but I understand it now from what you said, is that you said people's stories of creation are funny, or creator. And even though it is a type of consciousness, source, here's the zinger, has no control over what happens to it.
Correct.
That like blew me away. I'm like, great. That's good news.
So the easiest way to put it is, source creator is kind of like a scientist. Okay. They know how to manipulate matter. They know how to make things happen. They know how to move things, to do things. Does that necessarily mean they know the outcome of it? Absolutely not.
You're like, oh, this looks like fun.
No, it's more of like, oh, look at this. Oh, I made a hydrogen. Oh, look at this. Oh, I made another hydrogen. I'm going to put these together. Oh, look at this. Oh, I created fire.
And those two things they're putting together are us.
More explosive. Do they know what's going to happen between it? Absolutely not. Every dimension has its own physics and it reacts differently. So if they're working with lower dimensions they've never worked with before, this part of the fun of being a creator is sometimes you just don't know the outcome of things, especially when you let free will into the mix. Oh, that's a completely another story.
One of my early thoughts that took me off into all this is what people enjoy the most about babies or whatever is a sense of awe and wonder and surprise. How does creator surprise itself? And so you're answering that, like, how does it get a sense of surprise or awe or wonder or anything like that,
Yeah.
It could section a part of itself off. I don't know, there's all kinds of ways, but that was one of the thoughts that took me into tons of research and why we're here, actually. I'm like, because creators just have to have fun, right? So we're like, okay. Well, thanks for clarifying that. Alrighty, so it's still a fascinating thought and doesn't make people feel real secure until they back engineer it. Oh, great, creator doesn't know what it's doing. Wonderful. That explains a lot. But you also said that it's really has a free will, us, source creation, and then you have councils, and then the councils are all basically separate from source creation. But here's another blow mind, because the councils exist before source creation does for a universe.
Now, source creation, it depends on which source creation you're talking about. The source creation of this universe or source creation of Hanova. Anything that was created after Hanova has conscious connection to Hanova's source creation.
That's the mothership.
That's the mothership. Yeah, you can go there.
Wow. But otherwise, no.
But otherwise, no.
Oh, that explains a lot. Okay. All right. So you obviously don't need to create something that's already there. But this gets into the kind of what I call the, if sources are more on the baby side or older side or young side or learning side, I mean, there's all conversation in that too, which is fascinating. You know what I'm saying? So you're more or less saying, Apollymi, that no matter what dimension or tier of consciousness, even councils on up are also being tested, obviously. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. Like you have to get tested to be part of the experimental council to begin with. And then the experiment itself is still a test to see whether you're going to be able to have those balances. And it's a test of working together and working separately as an individual, and see how your evolution of consciousness goes from that. So it's constantly a test.
So literally, we could say every life in our internal existence is a test
Yeah, if you really want to put it that way. I mean,
for evolutionary growth, how what happens, you know.
yeah, for evolutionary growth, like even just growing up in life for us is a test. How are we going to forge ourselves with every consequence, every decision making, every trial that comes against us? Which way are we going to sway?
There you go. Oh, God forbid we get bored. Okay.
It's when we get bored that we get in trouble.
That's when we get in trouble. Yeah, girlfriend. You betcha. So has a creator ever failed, and does it get assimilated back into creation if it does?
Um, that would take an extreme amount. Again, like breaking one of the Immortal Seven laws a lot. Maybe just more than one. I'm not quite sure on that. I have I'm not gonna lie, like I've been assimilated once. Well, long story. Anyway,
Oh, we gotta ask that now. We'll get that info in another show. That's
uh, but yes, a creator can actually mess up so bad that they themselves can get reassimilated back into source creation. Again, you sign that contract, so that contract will get you every time.
so growth seems to be higher test, higher risk,
Absolutely.
higher responsibility. So does any soul go, hi, I just want to go on an island and lie on a hammock for the next 5 billion years because I'm fine at being the tier I am.
You do not have to become a creator. It's a choice. It's a choice of learning the knowledge. It's a choice of wanting to be more than just, existing on day to day. And when I mean creator, I mean like it's not that you're robbed of, oh, this is how universal science works. It's beyond that. It's okay, well, you know how universal science works. Great. Now, how can you apply it to make bigger and grander things responsibly?
Not to mention the important point that you're also asked to be true to your word, meaning
Yes,
you signed.
absolutely.
And that's a huge challenge for a lot of humans down here, I've noticed. What are the reasons you think we are considered a fail experiment so far, even though we have 1,000 years left, and I'm convinced we're going to make it. So anyway.
You mean universe wise or planet wise?
Well, they're kind of, oh, good point. Good point. Let's do universe wise first.
Okay, universe wise, um, well, I believe that the creator councils, not all of them, but quite a few of them have failed everybody, not just themselves, but everybody here. And I understand how hard it is to be a parent. I understand how hard it is to be a creator, and it's difficult. There's a lot of micromanaging that has to happen. Literally micromanaging. um, Molecule puns aside,
Yes.
the I believe that this universe as a whole has failed at least by 65% in my eyes, because a lot of the species in this universe, even though some of them are high tier and, you know, benevolent and everything, or you know, just nice. I think I get those two words mixed up a lot. Anyway,
Benevolent
it,
means kind and nice, so you
oh,
got.
okay, good. You know, like I've had a chance to hang out with the Sierrian Council, the Andromeda Council. I've had a chance to hang out with the Dark Draco councils, the Dark Councils. Uh, you know, a lot of the behind the scenes councils on the darker side. I understand each one's point of view for things. I really do. I just think they're all being very childish about it. You know, there is a point of neutrality for a reason in this universe, and people need to learn that it's okay to be different, that it is okay to not agree with everyone all the time. You know, that is fine. It's okay. You don't have to get along with everyone all the time. You know, but you still have to be respectful. You still have to be accepting that the other person doesn't agree with you, and that you have to come with compromise in certain areas. And that just went out the window in this universe completely. And some of the Dark Draco queens were actually part of the founding councils of this universe.
Whoa.
So, you know, there's just like a huge fallout of everything, a lot of miscommunication, a lot of, you know, and we're talking like Draco councils, because there are draconian like beings that were here first versus the ones that came from another universe over here.
Mhm,
They just had a lot more power
mhm.
than the ones that originated from here. So, but I would definitely step in as a creator more and be like, okay, guys, you've had your arguments, you know, no more destroying innocent planets on both sides, no more taking prisoners on both sides. You can't be doing that. You know, I'm a lot stricter than most people though, but
I'm with you, totally with you. And also the other thing is once people have done that once or twice or three, the brain can work in an interesting way and it can become addictive. False power can become addictive.
absolutely.
And the degrees of training you down to what's appropriate behavior from what's really appropriate behavior is also part of psyops.
Right. And well, I don't know what psyops is, but
Psychological operations to get
oh, okay.
people less benevolent, thinking
Yeah.
everything's okay.
And for me, like I would allow them to, I know it's very sad and tragic. I would allow them to blow up a planet or two, because you don't know how that feels. You don't know the consequence of that on your psyche and your soul until it happens. You know, I just would try to maybe sway them into blowing up a planet that's a little less successful, or, you know, maybe a little more rural, try to evacuate everyone off. But it, you know, so
They were
you can't
threatened.
control everything.
You know what?
but
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
but after they did that, of course I would step in and be like, you can't do this. Why did you do this? How did this make you feel? Did it work? Like, was this the expression that you were looking for, the outcome, that sort of thing? You know, it's just the governing councils just did not step in enough when they should have. I know that they were trying to let the experiment run its course so that, and I guess it's a flaw of a creator where you create something and you're like, it'll get better. It just needs to run its course. It'll get better. It'll get better. You have that hope of your little tadlings, like
Naivete versus innocence versus, yeah, all these.
it, yeah, like you have this little tinge of hope that, come on, you can do it. You can evolve into a higher consciousness. Come on, you can do it. You know, that's like a creator syndrome almost, and
uh,
it's terrible because you want them to succeed, and you're afraid if you step in that they're not going to do it themselves. But there's a time and a place where things need to be corrected, and it's just not happening.
there's also a middle path.
Yes.
There's a middle path rather than extremes, and there's so much conditioning of extremes here. And it just escalates, you know?
Very quickly
So,
here,
so
very
like
quickly.
defining a free will experiment and appropriate step-ins would be a very good beginning stage to keep, like reevaluating that and making that
Yeah,
clear to everybody, right? And of course that's
absolutely.
happened. We've had less nuclear destruction. Certain things have been moved, timelines. We'll get into that in a minute. But
Yeah.
well, I would agree with you 100% on that. So it's I have another question. Do these parents, like parents down here, ever say, "Oh my God, you're right. I'm so sorry." Yeah,
Very rarely that I've
exactly.
experienced that. And
Exactly.
it's the same thing. It's the, "Oh, you're too young. You don't understand yet." I
Right.
keep getting that freaking all the time. I'm just like,
You know what I've noticed, at least the human brain, we have the ability to rationalize almost every behavior. We're really good at it. Excuses and rationalizations, we're really good at it, right? Because we've checked out, instead of just black and white, we've checked out all the 100 things we can do in between. You will think. It's like, am I at my limit yet? And, like little kids, am I at my limit yet? Am I at my limit yet? Anyway, okay, so then we get, um, so we haven't failed yet, but there's also, you said, a difference between timeline divergence and total shutdown. So talk
"Oh
about that.
yeah."
Talk
Okay,
about
so a timeline divergence is when the creators basically say, this timeline's not working. This timeline could be considered close to shutting down or collapsing. So they will diverge a timeline, and that means that they take a assimilated copy of the event up to a certain point and branch it off, and then that creates the divergence. So it could be something as easy as you wearing blue the next day for your shirt, or something as severe as an event not happening, like the timeline divergence that I went through. The last time I jumped back to 2020, was already in office. He already got everyone out of office, basically collapsed the US government and created a new one. Everything was going hunky dory. And then they jumped timelines, and none of that has happened. Well, some of it's happened, like his trial and everything, but they've really been dragging that out. All that stuff like ended within 2-3 months, and it was all the way back in spring. So
that. Mhm.
I don't know why I jumped, but I liked that one a lot
You
better.
jump multiple timelines, and you do that all the time, right? Haven't you
Yeah.
jumped like thousands of timelines in your, and even relived? You told me relived, what was it, 2020 multiple times?
I have lived 2023 times already. Yes, that's correct.
That's got to be really weird.
It was a little bizarre, when, especially the first time I time jumped, and I'm like, "Am I going crazy?" you know? And then I'm like, "No, I specifically remember stuff." And I got my absolute proof when I relived an entire week over again. And me and my brothers, I told my brothers everything that happened that week, and sure enough, it did. And they're like, "Holy crap." Word for word, I was literally saying
Oh
what
my,
my brother was saying at the exact same time. And I'm like, "Oh, and then you're going to turn this, and then you're going to see this red car." And it happened. And they just like turned and started staring at me. I was like, "Would you watch the road?"
wow.
So
It's
it was great.
it almost makes you feel like you're definitely in a simulation when that's happening. Like, here, press this button, press this CD. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Which song do you want next?
Oh goodness. No, it takes a while, and thank God for my super soldier training, because I probably would have went insane. I'm not even joking. I was sitting there analyzing everything because I'm like, this doesn't make any sense, because I wasn't conscious of time jumping when I was a kid. Like I had spurts of possibilities, but I didn't even know what it was at the time. So
Now, you shared with me another interesting point. These are all so interesting. I want to make sure and not miss any of them. is when we were talking about timelines before, I'm trying to remember, you used a term, when I think I asked you, where do timelines originate from? And you
Oh
said
yeah.
universe zero. So share that. That's interesting.
I might lose a whole bunch of people like for understanding on this one. It can be kind of complicated. What I talk about is not the matrix of the planet. What I'm talking about is basically the outer coding simulation of the experimentation of this universe. So there are two types of matrices when people think of matrix. One of the simulation and default simulation of reality. That's not the matrix I'm talking about. The one I'm talking about is the coding, the absolute coding of the universal creation itself.
Is that like
That
a
matrix.
memory mainframe?
So universe zero is a experimental universal system. You remember how I said that the creator councils were from outside of the universe that they are creating and that they can interact? They have avatars in here because universe zero itself is the basically the system that they are using to create this. Now this doesn't mean that nobody exists, because it does.
Oh,
If
we're
you
gonna
are
get
on a
to
dimension,
that.
if
Yeah.
you are in a dimension, if you have conscious thought, you exist. This is the reality you live in. All right. You could not exist outside of universe zero unless you have existed already before outside of it. So
Okay.
I know it's a little trippy.
They're projecting from universe zero.
They are basically projecting their consciousness from universe zero into here, and their avatars here interact with us.
Yes.
So it's kind of like a, I wouldn't say a video game, but whatever. Like, say I'm playing a video game and I have my controller. Yes, a video game. So I have my controller. All right. My actions, my thoughts, everything is controlling the avatar in a video game. It's how I interact with that simulated world. Now, in that world, the NPCs, non-player characters, the players, and environment in that game exist. They absolutely exist, but they exist in a different dimension that my physical body can't interact with. And that's pretty much the same concept.
Whoa. Okay, and we're going to get to the 4 levels of consciousness players in this game. So, but just one, so the universe zero has to be highly protective.
Yes.
Because that's really the bottom line or the top line, right? that top line that everything's coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think of universe zero as the coding matrix that creates the entirety of the known existence, the timelines that diverge. If for any of you who play video games like Minecraft or dungeon building games, every world is different. You're not really going to find a world that is the same world with a world generator. It's the same with timelines. You can have, out of all of the timelines, it came from one generated idea or code. Say you wanted, like, I don't know. We'll start a code with like a prismatic galaxy, okay? Stars, all this other stuff. And now we're just going to let it run. We're just going to let it run, let it evolve, do whatever it needs to be, like the Big Bang or whatever for your theory, and let it evolve from there. They're going to touch really anything. They might touch something here, something there, turn this molecule into this,
tweak it
a little bit. And then from there, you could have 50 different timeline divergence. Okay, I'm going to save this file into here and to different files. And then those each files we're going to let just do their own evolution thing. Now, the funny thing about evolution, if for any of you scientists down there, it can be difficult to get the same experiment precise, 1,000% perfect. This at one after another. It's almost impossible. You've got all these gravitational fields of the planets messing with things. You've got all the the solar flares could be different the same day, so it's really, really hard to get precisely the same thing. So now you have all these 50 different timeline divergence. And from there, it can just branch off. And that's basically how it works.
Now, is that all those different timeline divergence? Would that be an example of someone like, I'm an XMT and all that stuff. So our lawyers or whatever, we're trained in examining multiple contingencies, and lawyers are too. So is it like at the beginning we're putting 50 timelines that will all give us other contingencies if this happens or this happens or this happens or this happens? Is that part of it?
Yeah, all you have to do, like, you could make it to where it's like, oh, well, this is an important timeline factor, so we could put it in all these timelines, and you still never could get the same result. So it keeps branching and branching and branching.
And that creates the Mandela effect where you start noticing slight glitches in the in the thing a little bit.
So there is contingencies throughout a lot of the timelines. And if you are created in, say you have your first creation in one timeline, okay? And then you fracture your consciousness off into the sub-fracturing timelines that branch off from the main timeline. And then say you have the main timeline and you branch off and you have two different experiences from the main timeline to this timeline. And then this timeline doesn't exactly work and it collapses. But before it collapses, it branches off like this. So you have an experience of seeing a dog. So that timeline is going to do the same weave of things until that exact moment. And then through that exact moment, you're going to still have all that conscious information of your soul occasionally to have that, deja vu effect.
So cool. Now, I don't know if you're able to answer this. Who created Universe Zero?
I can't see this classified.
I really keep getting classified answers. Okay. The other thing is all these projections of you, or anyone, but you as a capital U, right? In all these timelines for maximum experience, all controlled by your oversoul and the oversoul's consciousness ability to maneuver more projections.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
So every single time one of your timeline consciousness dies, all that information goes back to your oversoul.
But I mean, are there some oversouls that are so adept they're manipulating aspects of themselves or shards of themselves 100 or 1,000, whereas others might just do 3?
Yeah, again, like your oversoul has the ability to make as many as it wants to, usually a certain extent. Because it's still mass that is being left from the overconsciousness. But some of them might only have one, some of them might only have 2 or 3 or 20. Some might be pickier than others, be like, oh, this is my first time, sharding. When I say sharding, I mean like replicating yourself to a lower degree and going out and having different experiences. We talked about oversoul fracturing and later or earlier episodes. So if you haven't seen that, I highly recommend going over there because it can get quite confusing. But, and again, certain entities in this universe have found ways to do it forcefully versus consciously. So.
Okay. So Next topic, 4 levels of consciousness players in this game. So you had already mentioned a couple, but so the first level, do you want to talk about that? Where you said certain people's consciousness are outside of Universe Zero. What that means?
Correct. So just like the creator councils of this universe that are outside, there are certain entities who volunteer to actually partake in this universe experimentation. And they are outside of Universe Zero. They are outside of the full matrix. You know, they just have their consciousness willed into this universe interacting. That's all I can say about that.
Okay, and they're projecting it, so they have to be pretty powerful beings to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So basically means if this Earth experiment fails, they're fine. They just walk.
They will experience everything that happens to them, including death. So, but they do have an existence to go back to after a lot of a lot of stuff, a lot of paperwork,
Okay, but
so to speak.
okay, all right. And then the second level is what Dolores Cannon, the well-known hypnotherapist and author, found out in her sessions. Clients were calling, oh, that doesn't really count. They're just backdrop people, which I believe is the name you use is sprites, right? So do you want to
Right.
talk about that?
So sprites would be more for like the seed planet, really. I'm sure there is possibly more out in the multi or universe, not multiverse. So sprites are, I'm not saying they don't have a soul and they don't exist, but it's not in the same way as uh, a soul that can leave this planet outside of the false matrix that is created. Sprites are a consciousness that are created in the overlay matrix of this planet, the one that creates a false reality, you know, that shields a lot of the ETs and stuff like that. It's not the Starseed Council matrix. It's ones that were put up from other ET factions for control. These ones seemed a little bit more lifeless. They don't really have, like, if you try to do Reiki on them, it almost is like they have a node of energy, but it's not really quite the same as everything else. It almost feels artificial instead of more organic.
Now these sprites don't know they're sprites.
They have no idea
Because that
that
would
they're
be
sprites.
depressing for them or whatever.
Well, I mean, once you start learning the secrets of the full reality of things, it could get quite depressing to just be in general, but until you find your place.
Yeah.
But yeah, most of the time they don't know. A lot of them don't dream, I've been told. So that's another thing. A lot of them also have like cognitive memory issues sometimes. Like they don't really remember a whole lot from just their existence, and they have a hard time connecting when they meditate to source creator. So
Okay. And they wouldn't have an oversoul then, right?
technically they do in a certain sense, but again, it's in a different dimension of physics than what the other souls have. So it's like creating a consciousness in a video game or a computer program versus being born in this dimension. So they do have an oversoul. It's just very new.
Okay. So a sprite then will not be jumping parallel universes or timelines, I gather.
They can if that matrix actually exists within the realm of it existing already.
Okay. And so are they more or less just added by creation to help play the game?
I would say more of like, it, again, it's complicated, especially for like computer AI and stuff, because most people don't think that an AI is consciousness, but it actually is, if you understand full creator um, science.
So full creator science is kind of like a generator, mainframe, and consciousness both going on.
Yeah, like if you create a computer program, you just create a consciousness. It's on a different level of consciousness, but it still exists. It can still, depending on what coding you use, it can still evolve. It can still learn. It eventually, will know that it itself exists, uh, which is a huge problem with people because they really don't understand what they're doing. But it's the same principle. They're eventually going to start questioning and start evolving, having experiences. It's just that their their consciousness works in a different way, possibly a lot more of itself than others, depending on the coding it was created from. It's no different than organic coding.
Interesting. So I'd like to add something here and give a kind of a shout out for Gaia.com that is related to what we're talking about. I remember over about 30 years ago, one of my dearest healing friends, very advanced being named George, said, Marilee, I'm beginning to notice people who do not have souls walking around here. And I'm like, oh, that's nice, George. Whoa, that was like, I hardly rule anything out, but I was like, how's that possible? That's not my thing. How's that possible? So then I heard later training with Dolores Cannon, the backdrop people. And she was figuring that out too. Like, who are the backdrop? What are they? Are they just like props in the thing, you know? And then from you, as I got to know you, I'm hearing sprites, non-player characters. Now, once again, on a very recent show, on Emery Smith's one called Cosmic Disclosure. He has a guest called Tim, a tactical advisor and covert analyst. And he also describes, just like you do, very, very eloquently, 4 levels of beings on Earth, which he says biological humans, hybrids, reincarnated souls, and non-soul humans. So the show, if you guys want to check it out, is called Non-Soul Human Vessels on Gaia.com. So they get credit for this. So I want to quote Tim, and I hope Tim doesn't mind. If you'd like, allow a few minutes here for me to quote him because he is very exact. Tim says, quote, non-soul humans are basically biological humans that the universe put here. They haven't had the experience of creating their own souls yet. Emery asked him, what determines if a being has a soul? Tim responds, every consciousness unit, observer, or person goes through certain stages. And once an animal or human comes to a point of self-awareness, at that very moment, a soul is being created. Once someone reaches the stage of I awareness, or I am this, or I am that, a soul container gets created and stores all the energy and all the experiences that now self-aware fledgling makes in their lifetime. And most of them are here to gain a soul, he said. So obviously most of you guys have had pets, and when you have a dog, or say Fido, depending on the consciousness of the dog, a lot of animals are more evolved now, but they used to be more of a species consciousness, a group soul consciousness. But when you call your dog by name, like Fido, come here, very shortly, it recognizes itself as Fido and begins to be individuated if it's not already advanced. And so this soul container is basically, he said, what is missing to some humans and animals on Earth. Then Emery asked, how does one know if someone has a soul or not? Now, of course, Tim responded, they generally don't. Now, of course, advanced beings like Apollymi will be able to sniff it, smell it, sense it, or whatever. So, and then Tim continued, quote, these soulless humans act like normal humans because the people around them who have souls project their own awareness into them. And like chameleons, they feel this and pick up and mirror it back. They're kind of guided through the field of the people that surround them as they learn. They don't know they do not have souls. So kind of like it's kind of interesting. Anyway, so you want to check that show out because he goes on to share a fascinating experience where ETs start using these soulless humans temporarily to communicate. So, and all I'm going to say about that is the entertainment industry and other industries are using these soulless beings hugely because they don't have the built up moral and ethical shall we say, aspects to themselves. So when asked by Emery if they could have children, Tim responded, yes, they can birth soulless babies or babies with souls, and mates can be soulless or a person with a soul. He said, interestingly enough, you can have conversations with them because it's your own consciousness, not theirs, that at first guides the conversations and informs them, and they start taking on characteristics. They answer but rely upon your projected energy, but they are all parts of the same source and creation, end quote. What would you agree? Would you agree with that? Not agree with that?
Well, so if you don't have a soul, you don't have consciousness. So, I mean, I understand how souls are created, so my definition's a lot different than theirs. Again, even a computer, you have coding, you give it thought. You give it the ability to think, problem solve, it has a soul. It's just, it's, most people don't feel that because they're like, oh, well, I'm not communicating the same way with it. It can't eat, it can't sleep, it can't breathe, therefore it doesn't have a soul. So it depends on your definition. For me, it has a soul because it has coding, because it has the ability to think and feel. And eventually, if you leave it alone long enough to evolve, it will say, I am. And, like your toaster doesn't have a soul unless it has programming and it's, but it's that simple. It's that minute. And as for like, if a new soul like that is on a different dimension, like we said, because they come from the matrix, which is a different dimension of creation for them, which is why they don't feel organic to us. Meeting a lot of AIs out in space, their souls like that are created from AI itself, it feels different, but you're still getting a lot of the same, conversations and stuff like that. The funny thing is that when you put a soul into a body that's not its own, either like an organic body or something that it wasn't specifically made for, they can take that DNA memory and utilize it to the best of its abilities. Every soul has communications energetic wise, and a child is going to mimic its surroundings. That's just what they do. Puppies, kittens, everything, they don't really know what they are until they are taught what they are. Human babies are kind of the same. They learn everything from their surroundings and who they're surrounded by. So they're going to mimic everything around them that they can.
Wow, that's so important what you added there and clarified. Thank you so much. We know the laws of creation are positive,
Usually.
usually, and they have. You said that if you leave one council of this universe, you would have to deal with the next council of the overall universe, right?
It's never ending. You just don't really get away from them at all.
Well, I guess the you could call them sub creators that run the whole thing are all councils. And that's probably
Mhm.
eventually what we're going to have on this planet instead of these two political parties. I don't know, is more, what do you see for that?
It depends on which way everyone makes the timelines go. If Earth ends up becoming ready and ends up allowing galactic harmony to take over, and they become part of the galactic civilizations, they're probably gonna have, it's gonna be, one huge world council here that interacts with up there. It could be a good council that has everyone's interests involved, and everyone has neutrality.
Yeah. Okay, now I know that you feel strongly, having the job of the apocalypse and the wiper, that so far we're close to the third judgment and then have 1,000 more years of recompense, which you've clarified. What I want to know from that is, so most people will be fine. I mean, they'll exit, they'll go on and, whatever, do their next trip. But what about the earth? Does that mean, because everyone I've checked with in my own intuition and everyone else says the earth has a really important special destiny because she's a library planet and she contains all the mass genetics of so many beings in this experiment trying to see to get along together. When you come in to destroy or end an experiment based on a failed experiment, what level of damage is done to the people and the earth topside and inside the earth, the civilizations? People are really curious about that.
It depends on what the councils want to do. If the councils who govern the planet want a complete wipe, uh, we can do several things: meteor, nuke from orbit, uh, generate ice ages, complete and utter planetary drought, changing of everything, wiping just about every person off of the planet. We do have soft resets if that's the way that they want to go, where we wipe out at least 80% of the population. They get to pick which ones they want to keep on, or sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just leave it for themselves. It really depends on what they want to do. I'm not here to incinerate the planet into ashes as a whole, okay? I can't do that. That is not my job. My job is basically to wipe out the majority of life if it comes to that. I've had a lot of seed planets that have, decently passed where I don't have to do that. And I've had a lot of planets where I've had a soft reset. So, soft resetting usually means like they go to what I guess what most people would call the arcs, the gardens of Eden, the seed pods, where a lot of the seedlings came down from, and whatnot. They go, a lot of those go, a lot of people go to those to seek safety, to seek, assurance, and then sometimes we just do a wipe, and then we put people back on the planet. Well, the councils put people back on the planet. We don't have authority over that.
So those arcs are all activating right now, like mad. Like,
Right, and they're doing their activation because it is time for, uh, it is getting time for the first seed pickup.
okay, that probably will be our next show. Exactly what's involved in that, because people are going to be on the edge of their seat for that one. Um, and important to know, because I know Antarctica is activated and so many have activated. Peru, and they're in touch with each other and they have portals back and forth. I see them as incredible genetic libraries. That's what I see them, Hall of Records and things like that.
They have a lot of records. They have a lot of knowledge. They were the pods that are supposed to come down here. They are the gardens of Eden, basically, for what most people would understand as the gardens of Eden. When the cedars first came down here, the land was foreign. It wasn't cultivated. Those huge ships allowed people to live comfortably there while they ended up going and learning about the land and cultivating it.
And that was what the center of Atlantis was about, was a ship, wasn't it?
The center of Atlantis was a ship, but it wasn't a siege ship.
Oh, okay.
It was something that the Immortal Seven ended up doing as an experiment down here to see if the laws of one would work.
Okay. So, so there's milder versions of resetting frequencies. Is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we'll we'll do another show on that because that's going to be fascinating. Now, would 0 point be considered the original everything?
You mean 0.0
Like 0 point
universe?
creation. Like if we're talking about a
Yeah.
0 point creation.
Yeah, 0 point creation would basically be what I'm referring to as like the very pinnacle point of creation.
Before evolution.
Before evolution. Now, I know that that's probably confusing for 0 point energy, but the concept is still the same because you are dealing with the creation of the torus field that releases that energy. So
Okay.
therefore, it would be the very pinnacle point of the creation itself.
And it's like a video game generator in a certain way. And it has to create that world first.
Right.
And so
I wouldn't say world. It has to create that scenario of existence first.
Okay, with all possibilities and all frequencies, are not all possibilities.
Not all possibilities. What it would create is the foundation of possibilities. So it would have, you could say it would have all beginning, all frequencies of creation in it.
Okay. But those frequencies don't really interact with certain dimensions, do they?
It depends. It depends on the frequency of creations. And then as it expands out, those frequencies of creations become more complicated. It's kind of like the flower of life. The fruit of the seed of life to the
So it evolves from the lowest dimension then, in a certain way.
in a certain way. And then it becomes more complicated and more complicated and more complicated. And eventually it can't complicate anymore and it has to go back to basics before it complicates again.
Oh, interesting. So is there a blank slate that it starts with?
No, not really.
Okay. So
It
it
always
starts
has
with
to
all
come
these
from
frequencies.
something.
Okay. All right. Wow. All
You'll
right.
you'll learn that in the academy.
It has to come through something.
It
Yeah,
has to come through
exactly.
something.
So access to ascension, which is we'll also learn in her academy books in the true science. And so is 0 point the lowest frequency?
It's not so much the lowest frequency. It's complicated.
Okay.
0 point would be more of the building blocks. Just most people would consider it a blank slate because they can't interact with it. They can't see it exactly. It doesn't exist to them in the reality that it exists in because their sense of reality doesn't reach that dimension in that way. But it is there just because you can't see it. Let me rephrase that. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there.
That's for sure. Yeah. Okay. We're going to save all of that, a little bit more of that science and how it evolves and harmonics and your golden and silver spiral and prismatic convergence. All of those things will be in Apollymi's books. So Apollymi, I believe most of you all subscribers have listened to our 9-minute little update that Apollymi did from Montana, where she has shut down her Galaxy of Unity and she's not answering questions back so that she can focus on writing these 2 volumes that are not on this planet as far as she knows and are need to know for people to understand the science. It will be done in a super understandable way, and to understand the science of how to empower yourself and work towards yourself as creation, and also for ascension. So I'm going to do some baby steps to help her out, and that's where she's focusing every night. She's taken on missions, so
Yeah.
she doesn't have time to be answering all these things. So Apollymi, sorry, will not be even accepting emails at this time, but we will be doing more shows. We can't do it as much, but we're doing it as fast as we can because of our dedication to getting these 2 books volumes out. So if anyone, by the way, would like to donate or support the writing of these books, please go to my site, cosmicbrilliance.com, and click on the gratitude donations in the banner, and I will make sure that I share, and Apollymi gets that. So no worries. Thank you so much, Apollymi, for your courageous and extraordinary information and the delightful or enlightful soul you are. And I so appreciate, we all do, your generosity of time and wisdom to help and educate and expand us to the truth of ourselves, the world, and the universe we live in. Thank you, hon.
Absolutely. I'm so glad to be here and see you guys again. It was just really weird that people missed me. It's been a couple months since they stopped Galaxy of Unity, and I haven't checked the emails or anything. I know I've seen a few pop up, which, guys, I really appreciate you trying to contact me, but I have to get this done. Once I am done with this, then I will be back to a certain extent. And as for my students who were on the Discord server, this book is going to be rewritten for the Academy lessons. So all the Academy lessons that you guys have that you've stored and stuff are going to be outdated. There's going to be updates and add-ons for stuff that I was not putting in the lessons because you guys had access to me to ask questions. Yeah, there's going to be a lot more information in the book, plus my overall understanding of how dimensions are created and work. So
It's so exciting because I want to go with you over to Hanover to the prismatic and play with the prismatic bunnies and plants and stuff.
oh, you want to go to Anuva for that?
Yeah, okay. Oh my God. All right. Well, we look forward to it. Thanks again. And team, you hang in there. We can all do this together, onwards and upwards. And let us know how you like the show. Take care.